Good morning, students. Today we are going to start with the third poem from your book, First Flight. And the title of the poem is How to Tell Wild Animals. I'm sure you all can tell wild animals. That is, you all can identify wild animals and tell others. So, before we start with the poem, I would like you all to go down the memory lane and recall how you all were taught by your parents and by your teachers as to how to identify different animals or how to differentiate between different animals. I'm sure you must have been shown some pictures or you must have been given some animal toys. Or some of you must have been taken to a zoo to have a real view of these animals. But can you imagine somebody being taught about these wild animals by making that person stand in front of these animals and risk his life to make out how one animal is different than other? Well, I don't think there would have been any among you. So let's start the poem and make out how the poet of this poem is going to tell us as to how to identify different wild animals. Let's start with the poet first. Carolyn Wells. Carolyn Wells was an American author and poet. She was a daughter of William E. and Anna Wells. She was a writer of poems, mysteries, children's literature, parodies, and other many humorous pieces. And the poem that we are going to start today and discuss is also one of her humorous pieces. She was born in the year 1862 and died in 1942. So let me tell you something about the title of this poem. The title innocently poses the question as to how one can identify wild animals. But as we read, we find that the poem suggests some dangerous ways of identifying wild animals. In fact, they are so dangerous that if one were to follow them, one could even lose one's life. The title proves to be ironical as well, because one would not be alive to tell others as to which animals had he learnt about. So let's get started with the poem. So let's move on to the very first stanza of this poem. If ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you are dying, you'll know it's the Asian lion. So the poet says, if you go by chance to the jungles of the countries lying in the east, you'll see a grand and majestic wild beast, as you can see here in the picture. If in those thick forests, if you see a large and terrible animal with brown yellowish skin, you should be sure that he is the Asiatic lion. And if he roars loudly, and the roar terrifies you to death, then you are hearing the roar of an Asiatic lion. So you'll get to know this is an Asian lion. So I hope you're clear about this stanza. Let's move on. So the Asian lion, you have to remember these points, is a large beast. He's brownish yellow in color. He roars. That is his personality trait, that he terrifies you with his roaring skills. The sound is terrible to hear, and you feel as if you are going to die. This makes one almost die due to great fear. He is found in the forest in the eastern countries of Asia, and that's why he is called Asian lion. There's one thing that I want to draw your attention towards in this very stanza. Kindly check the last two lines of this stanza. You can make out that the poet has not completed the word by adding the letter G to dine, whereas he has used an apostrophe over here and omitted G from here. So, the basic purpose of the poet here is to make the two lines rhyme. That is the reason he has omitted the sound of ing and left the sound of in, so that dine and lion they rhyme. They rhyme, and that is how the rhyme scheme of the entire stanza is maintained. The device that the poet has used in these two last lines is called elision. It is Elision. So you have to remember that. So let's move on to the next stanza of the poem. I hope you are clear about this. Yes, next one. Or if sometime when roaming round, a noble wild beast greets you, with black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. The poet says that if you are roaming around in the forest and you see a noble beast, you must understand that you are face to face with the Bengal tiger. This beast has black stripes on a yellow ground. Yellow ground is his skin. And this beast can be noticed only when he is going to eat you. The poet suggests you to notice all these things when he is going to eat you. Look how dangerous it would be for you. And whom are you going to tell after that? This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Discern means is to see, to make out, to differentiate. The Bengal tiger roams in the forest freely. He is the king of animals. If you know who is our national animal, it's tiger. And he looks so noble. Noble here definitely highlights the aristocracy of this animal. The way he walks, the way he conducts himself. He never makes a loud noise. Rather, he is very quiet even before attacking his prey. He has black stripes on a yellow background. So, this is a physical attribute of this animal. When this tiger notices someone, he tries to eat him. He is so terrifying with his jaw and his teeth. Yes, you need to understand this word that has been used for tiger. Why has he been called noble? Now, let's move on to the next stanza. If strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. 'Twill do no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. Here the poet says, if you're walking leisurely in the forest and you view a beast, it might be a leopard. Now, how will you make out if it's a leopard or some other animal? His hide is covered with dark spots. The moment he sees his prey, he pounces upon it, and his attack is so sudden. There is no escape from him, even if you cry with pain. He'll continue jumping at you and start eating you before you understand that it is a leopard. I would like to draw your attention towards this term used in the second last line of this stanza. Now, if we have to expand twill, it is it will. That means the poet has omitted the letter I from here. If you remember in the first stanza also, we had discussed one word in which a letter had been missed by the poet, and that was G. Yes, the poet had omitted G and just used an apostrophe in that place. So, the device that is used over here is again elision that was used in the first stanza and now in this stanza also. So another thing that you need to understand over here is that the poet has repeated this term lep and lep. Lep is no word at all. The poet has changed the word leap into lep so that this term keeps on rhyming with the term leopard. So he has deliberately misspelled the word, and whenever a poet deliberately changes a word according to his own choice, just to create some sort of rhythm, create some sort of impression in the poem, you should always remember that the poet is using a poetic license. Now, this is a license that poets have, writers have, but you people don't have. You should remember that. Another device that the poet has used over here is repetition, because he has repeated the word lep and lep twice over here just to highlight that you'll not get a second chance, and he'll keep on pouncing on you, and ultimately he's going to eat you up. Now, let's move on to a better understanding of this stanza and recall what we have learnt. A leopard has spots on his hide, that is the physical attribute of the animal. These are black in color on his yellow skin. He's a great runner, he's very quick, and as soon as he sees someone, he leaps over him at once. He's so terrifying and powerful. Now let's move on to the next stanza. If when you are walking round your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard, be sure it is a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess he'll give you just one more caress. Yes, we are talking about the bear here. Now, why would you find this bear in your yard only? Probably he has come over there to find some honey, or maybe just having a stroll. The poet describes the bear in a humorous way. As soon as the bear comes near a human being, he embraces him tightly. And then he starts to make his hug tight. He starts squeezing one to death, and he'll touch him lovingly. That's why it's known as a bear's hug. Again, this is ironic. This touch is not at all gentle. The term caress stands for a gentle touch. Definitely, this touch is not gentle, and it's going to be so hard that you won't survive that embrace. Now, remember that the poet has repeated this word very over here to emphasize that that hug will be very, very hard for you to tolerate, to survive, to stay alive. Now that we have already covered 4 stanzas of the poem, I want you to go through the next 2 stanzas of the poems and make out how has the poet suggested the readers to make out, to identify different animals and to differentiate between each of them. And once you are done, I want you to make out whether your understanding of both the stanzas matches with that of mine. For that, recite the poem silently and understand it yourself. There is one thing more. In the 3rd stanza, I did not discuss a line wherein a device had been used. I leave it to you to find out, and then find out if you were right or wrong in my next video. For now, it's goodbye.